Redditors of Reddit, what's your personal experience of one man's trash is another man's treasure? My roommate was rich and didn't like her mattress pad and thought it was cheap, so she gave it to me and it changed my life. It was a plush foam pad that improved the horrible bed I had to sleep on. Found a PSP at a garage sale and they were selling it for $35. PSP just came out like a year ago and I really wanted one. Asked what was wrong with it. Guy said the screen just turned off after playing it for a few hours. Bought it, took it home, and put it to charge. It came on with no issues. Everything was working. That's when I realized holy shit, the battery died and he didn't even think it needs to charge. Edit. Fixed some spelling errors. I got a really nice watch doing this. They said it was a solar watch and normally this brand is, but they also make regular quartz movements. I bought it for like $10 at a swap meet and changed the battery. Presto. Then I sold it on eBay for $90. Went to garage sale and found a heavy leather trench coat from Germany. Paid $5 for it. Turns out it's a tank commander's from WW2, tailored by H-Boss. It's currently sitting on loan at the Canadian National War Museum as part of their static panzer display. My father was a curator, later director, of a Smithsonian museum. It gives me a kick to go through his old museum and see artifacts of my youth on mannequins and the like. Oh look, dad's old 70s jacket. Silver my entire job. No kidding. I work in building materials salvage and resale. Useful building materials get tossed in the dump by the tons. Daily. I think my company diverted along the lines of 14 million tons last year alone. What does that cover? Really, anything from the front door to the back. Doors, windows, sinks, toilets, cabinets, lights. We're kinda like a Goodwill for the things you get at Home Depot. We get customers on their way to the dump and we'll pick out the good stuff so that folks can fix their own houses on the cheap. It's great, and as a veteran dumpster diver, I love it. I work for a construction company, can confirm it's really silly the amount of stuff that gets tossed in the skip because we don't need it anymore. 2 months ago they dumped an entire pallet of door furniture in the skip since that contract has ended and we can't use it on another contract. Boxes and locks, handles, hinges etc. Can you donate it as a write-off? They do here. Tax write-off, store credit, and sometimes a little cash. Not a lot of cash, it is garbage after all. My old car was in great working order, but rough around the edges. Was in the process of buying a newer car to replace it. My old man advised me to scrap it, but I kept it around, fixed it up, polished, shined and fettled it until it looked almost new. Spent next to nothing to just time. Then when it came to sell it, a family acquaintance inquired about it, but could only afford 75% of the asking price as she had gone through 3 cars in 6 months buying them off disreputable people. She was going through a tough time, so I sold it for that reduced price. That was nearly 2 years ago, and it's still going strong with no faults or repairs needed. Love seeing it still on the road, especially with a young family. Close bracket. This is great. Similar story, like 10 years ago I bought some Pose Pontiac Grand Prix for $600. It looked like garbage. Mirrors were taped on, dents and such all over, but ran great. Long story short, I focused on the engine, changed the oil regularly, and put 130k extra miles on it. Sold it 5 years ago for $600. At 295k miles, money well spent. I got an odd sense of power driving a car whose appearance I very obviously gave zero shits about. Nobody messed with me on the road. Years ago my wife and I were moving out of our apartment in a neighborhood with tons of college students. We were young ourselves and graduating from a futon to a bed in the new place. The futon we were going to toss on moving day had been heavily used for a while. It had stains of all kinds on it. Tons of cat hair semi-embedded in it, and was probably twice its original weight due to the skin flakes it had picked up over its 3 years of service. As I was dragging it to the curb, I was approached by a scraggly college kid. He was flabbergasted that I was throwing it out. Hesitatingly, he asked if he could possibly have it. I said yes. He threw it over his shoulder and marched away triumphantly. I've been that kid. Saved me $100. The summer after my senior year I would go around to businesses and take old electronics out of the trash. I would fix them, clean them and sell them. Made a couple grand to help me get through the summer. In the dumpster of a former church, it had been closed for several years and eventually sold to become a nightclub / bar / restaurant. I found an authentic Tiffany, signed, stained glass window. It had been removed from the church years ago and stored in a wooden crate to protect it. Apparently, the workers threw it in the dumpster not realizing its beauty and value as a creation of Louis Comfort Tiffany. The workers likely had a no salvage policy that prevents them from dumpster diving without risking their job. It looks trashy to have your employees digging for treasure while cleaning out a customer site. I would have texted a friend to grab it for me. I just would have come back later with a hoodie or ski mask lol. I'm assuming being an employee, he would reasonably know when no one would be there and they aren't going to check the cameras without reason. No one is going to notice the garbage went missing. I used to dumpster dive, wrote about it for In fact, I found countless video games, steel cases, and even a 60-inch TV in dumpsters that people were just tossing away. Where are the best dumpsters? I want to get rich. GameStop. Those rent-to-own places. PetSmart, Petco, etc. They toss perfectly useful stuff out constantly, out behind malls. Word of advice, if you have to jump a fence to get to it, you're trespassing. Don't leave it a mess. Be respectful. And check your local ordinances for any laws prohibiting dumpster diving. In my hometown there is a really preppy and expensive college. At the end of the spring semester, before the students went home, most would throw away everything they owned at the school and just fly home with a backpack. These people threw away perfect boxes, guitars, games, brand name clothes with tags still on them, furniture, fridges, you name it. I guess it was one man's trash, but these idiots were literally throwing away treasure. College town. Decorating my house a little at a time. Oriental rug on the curb. Paid $100 to have it professionally cleaned and learn that it's a $1,500 rug. Rick a vacuum at the thrift store for $35. It's an $800 vacuum. I'll have it serviced for about $100 and be good to go. These kids just get rid of everything. Fine with me. My elderly neighbor was throwing out a 1950 era stereo console last summer. I salvaged tons of parts from it and used the parts to build a smoking good guitar amplifier. If it's smoking, it isn't good. My work had a small reference library, I mean really small, just a little room with some shelves. It was being closed to make space for a server room. Someone sent round an email if anybody wanted a full 12-volume plus 5 supplement edition of the Oxford English Dictionary. It took several trips to take it home. I love it. One year Cinemark put stickers on their cups, redeemable for 100 American Airlines FF miles. I went through theaters after movies let out and dug in the trash cans and got enough points for a free trip to Europe. This lady on my old block had her husband one day up and leave her and run off to Europe with a younger woman. Then she spiraled out of control and started dating her 19-year-old son's best friend. The son soon to left and never returned. Fast forward a few months and the house fell into foreclosure. On her sheriff eviction day, she put all her son's and husband's belongings outside, and the neighborhood got to take whatever they wanted for free. I scored a bunch of euros, and a sorted coin collection, a bunch of box games, and skis. I exchanged the euros for dollars, and made some money, sold the skis online and still have the coins and box games. Christ, the poor son. Oh, I have one. A family had a sale to get rid of their worldly goods and satanic temptations because they wanted to renew their faith in God. To each their own, no biggie. I did however walk out of that yard sale with a binder of old MTG cards that paid my student loans off, and most of my car. Cost me $25 and they refused to take more money. I felt kinda bad, but they were just dead set on removing this kinda stuff. I just hope they didn't have a college-aged son who didn't know that their cards were sold for peanuts. I once was walking down my alley and noticed a bunch of trash bags sitting out of the can. I took a peek in and noticed a Sega Dreamcast. Needless to say, I pulled open that bag and a few of the other ones in and out of the can. All in all, I found the Dreamcast, 4 controllers, a ton of Dreamcast games, bunch of Gamma Boy Advance games, Bionicles, Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon cards. 12-year-old me hit the jackpot. I held on to all of that stuff for years. Later, in high school, I found out one of my friends lived in that house that I found all that stuff at. In shock, I told him about how I found all of his stuff. It turned out that he and his family were doing a huge house-wide cleaning session. Tons of stuff was getting thrown away, and my buddy was also moving bedrooms. His mom had mixed up a few garbage bags with all his old stuff he had packed up to store away, and chucked it all. Then, when they realized the trash had already come the next day, so I ended up saving all of his stuff from the dump, and was able to return all of it to him years later. He let me keep the Dreamcast and the Bionicles, though also literally, one man's accidental trash was my treasure. Both of those days hold very fond places in my memory. Phantasma here, hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to sub for more.